A little while ago, I made a video called 5 No Bull Squash Truths. And the first one was, there are no shortcuts. If you want to improve, you have to work hard. Sorry, there's no other way of putting it. Now, to work hard, you must train. Now, it seems to me that a lot of people don't train. They play, but they don't train because they don't know what they should be doing. Now, in this video, I'm going to give you 5 guiding principles that will help you understand the types of things or how to do some training. I'm not going to give you training programs. I'm not qualified to do that. There are people on the internet that you can find to do that. I'm going to give you some principles that you can use to assess the current training that you've got and to change some of the things that you might be thinking about changing for your training. On the screen at the moment, you can see those 5 guiding principles. The times next to them show you when the part begins, so you can jump there if you want to. The first 3, volume, velocity, veracity, are very closely linked and they should be used in conjunction with each other. So let me get started on the first one, volume. Number 1, volume. That is how much training you do. You would think the more training you do, the better. No, it's not that simple. Very quick anecdote. Last year, 2019, my goal was to do 100 consecutive days of exercise, a specific type of exercise I wanted to do, floor work, resistance bands, Swiss balls, stuff like that. And I did 110. Now, as I progressed through those 110 days, I increased the number of repetitions or changed the resistance band to be a little bit stronger. Nothing set, just how I felt it. After 110 days, I took about a week, maybe 2 weeks rest, I can't remember. And then I did a different program. I worked Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. And I made more improvement in the first 4 weeks of the new program than I did in 100 days. Now, it's more complicated than that because, of course, the 100 days still could be affecting how my body is changed. And I knew it was going to happen, but I wanted to do the 100 days for a mental exercise. The reality is that doing more is not necessarily better for you. You need time to rest. The difficult question, though, is how much do I need to do? And you need to do the minimum amount that you need to get better. Any more is wasted effort. Now, I'd love to be able to say to you, you have to do 3 times a week for at least 30 minutes. And that's the sort of stuff that's been around since Jane Fonda in the 1970s. You have to decide what works best for you. You have to listen to your body. Am I doing too much? I need to reduce it. Am I not doing enough? I need to reduce it. And here's the problem, that if you don't seem to be improving, you might say, I'm not working hard enough. I've got to work harder. I'm going to bump it up to 4 times a week instead of 3 times a week. And then you're caught in this vicious circle where you're not improving, you work harder. You're not improving, you work even harder. And you might just need to take a rest. So as far as volume is concerned, try to do enough that you feel that you're benefiting, but not necessarily any more. Remember, my videos are for club players. We're not talking about professionals or juniors who really want to reach the top. We're talking about people who have got jobs and have got families. I know you can't train every single day for 40 minutes or an hour. So you have to think carefully about what you're going to do. And I'm going to come on to that in number 5, which is value. Velocity. Number 2, velocity. Well, velocity, of course, is how fast you do something. Well, you might think that you should do it as fast as possible. And that's not always true either. Just like volume, the more you do is not necessarily better. What you need to do is you need to do it at the speed that you will be doing it when you play squash. Now, of course, not everything you do has a direct relationship to squash. When you do some crunches or some planking, clearly that's not, you can't do that on a squash court. But what I mean is, if you're going to lift some weights or you're going to do some resistance bands, I would recommend reducing the weight but going a little bit faster. Because when you're swinging and when you're hitting the ball and lunging forward, it's all at quite a fast speed. But it must never compromise the quality of the movement. So you need to be going as fast as you can as long as you keep the quality. Now let's look at ghosting. If you've decided that you really need to work on your footwork, you need to start by doing some ghosting so you know exactly what steps that you need to take. And just very quickly, ghosting generally has two types. It has the fitness aspect and it has the technical aspect. The fitness aspect, of course, is you're just on court trying to get fitter and stronger. The technical aspect is making sure you've got really good footwork. Now that's related to fitness, because if you're wasting energy or you're moving incorrectly, then you're not going to be as fast as you could be. So if you're doing some ghosting where you need to work on your technical aspects, you need to go at the speed that you would be in a real game once you know how you should be moving. And if that means that you have to do 50% less in a workout session, but you're doing it at the right speed, that's fine. Don't just say, oh, well, I'm going to do 20 minutes of ghosting and I'm going to do, like 100 different positions. No, do 10 minutes of ghosting, but do it fast so that you recreate what happens in a real situation, assuming you've got good footwork. So make sure you've got good foot first. Yes, I will be making a ghosting video soon. Number 3, veracity. Now, veracity means truth. And in this context, I'm talking about quality. I mentioned it in the previous one about velocity, about making sure that whatever exercise you do, you don't cheat, you don't do it badly just to go faster. And you see often lots of people in gyms sort of doing these instead of like keeping a strict movement if you're working on your bicep curl. That's an example. Now, when it comes to squash, I want you to make sure that when you're hitting the ball, if you're doing some practices, the moment that you feel that your quality of shot is dropping, stop. And I'll be talking about this in another video. Yes, I apologize for promising lots more videos, but this is to do with muscle memory, and you don't want to be telling your body that the bad way of doing it is the correct way. When you're doing any exercise, if you can't keep the quality of the exercise high, take a break and continue. Take a break, do something else. Keeping the quality of the exercise is so important. No point doing something for 20 minutes if you're not doing it properly. Better to do it for 10 minutes, but do it really, really well. So to recap on those first 3 before I move on to number 4, volume, velocity, veracity. They need to be considered all in one. Do a little bit less, do a little bit faster, but do it properly. Those ideas will help you improve your ghosting, your hitting, your running, whatever type of exercise that you do. Keep those principles in mind. Number 4, variety. Now, back in the 1970s and 80s, there were gymnasiums around, but generally professional squash players spent 90, maybe 95% of their time on court. They would be doing ghosting, they would be doing hitting, condition games. Now, things have changed. In the world of fitness, there are so many different activities that you can be doing. And I recently saw James Wilstrop talking about dancing. Dancing is a fantastic exercise. It's great for the calves, great for the coordination, helps you think about your movements. I've got no problem with anybody dancing. There's yoga, there's boxercise, there's Zumba, there's Pilates, there's capoeira, there's anything that you can think of. If you're physically active, that's really good. Now, it's important nowadays because we know that repetitive exercise is bad for us, especially being on court. And if your courts aren't sprung or semi-sprung at least, you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on your joints. So you need to be looking at different types of exercise. There's a phrase in English which is a change is as good as a rest. So if you've been doing something for a long time, like let's say you've been running for a long time and you feel as though you're not improving, change it. Go on a bike, go in the rowing machine, keep your back straight, talk to one of the gym people in there, make sure you're doing the exercise correctly. Remember number 3, veracity. Make sure you're doing it correct. Now, another reason I didn't mention about veracity is you don't want to get injured. So the idea of variety is all about giving your body a rest, but constantly challenging it. Yes, there are some things that you have to do all of the time. You probably have to do ghosting quite a lot because it recreates playing squash. Yes, you have to hit the ball. Yes, you have to play conditioned games because those are the things that represent what you're doing on court. But there are so many other things that you could be doing that are great for your body that don't continually stress your ankles, your knees, your hips, your back, your neck, your shoulders. So number 4 is variety. Make sure that you've tried a few different exercises because they will really help extend your playing time. And number 5, value. Well, I mentioned almost already that any exercise you do, as long as you do it properly, is going to benefit your squash. Okay, there's probably some exceptions. I don't know, I'm not even going to try and think of anything. There are probably some exceptions, but essentially if you're an active person and you're doing exercise, that's great. It will help your squash. However, what you need to ask is, will it help my squash? Now, I said it will help squash. I did say your squash, but I should have said it will help squash. But will it help my squash? You need to look at yourself and you need to say, what are my strengths? What is it about me that I do well? And then you need to put those aside and you need to think about the things that you don't do so well, because those are the things that you should be spending most of your training on. I would recommend 70 or 80% of your time and effort being put into things that you would consider your weaknesses, and then 30 or 20% of your time into things that you think of your strengths. So for example, my weakness at the moment is cardiovascular. I haven't been able to do any running, cycling, swimming or anything, partly because of the pandemic, partly because having my hip replaced. So that's what I really need to do. I need to do more aerobic work. If I were going on court and playing squash, I know that that would be the biggest problem. Sure, my legs would ache and my hips would ache when I first get back on there, but they're the strong part of my body compared to my aerobic. So as far as value is concerned, you have to say to yourself, what do I need to do? What are my weaknesses? Because those are the things that I should be doing more of. If it's cardiovascular, if it's flexibility, and the chances are every single person watching this video, flexibility will be one of your weaknesses. But nobody wants to do flexibility because it doesn't sound exciting. You don't sweat when you're doing it. You don't necessarily feel as though you've had a great workout when you've finished your 10 minutes of flexibility, but it will help your squash. So that's the last one, value. How useful is this exercise for my squash? That's what you have to ask yourself. Well, there you have those 5 guiding principles. I hope they were useful. If you have any comments or questions, please put them in the comments and I will respond as soon as possible. On the screen at the moment is a subscription button. If and only if you think my content is useful, please consider subscribing. There's also a playlist of the 5 other things that I think you'll find interesting, plus a video that YouTube thinks is a good fit for you based on what you've been watching. And remember, do something every single day to improve your squash. See ya.